would like to, quickly introduce my fellow panelists, Hector Barreto and Paul Quintero. I think Paul is on the line here. Paul is the CEO of the largest microlender in the country, Axion East. And Hector is an ex-SB administrator and also chairman of the Latino Coalition and one of the leading lights in the Hispanic space, actually. Paul, you're there?
Yes, thank you very much, Rohit.
Yeah. So just wanted to start with a quick, introduction to Biz2Credit. I think a lot of people might know about us, but, some people might not still know about us. And so we are an online credit marketplace. We have been around for last 6 years, and what we are very proud is to help small businesses, especially immigrant businesses, to get access to credit. And we are very proud to have Axion as one of our earliest partners, and where we have done quite a decent amount of business with them and with other micro lenders. And what we really pride ourselves is getting and giving the best deals and the best service to our customer base. And we are a fully online platform, which helps us to complete the application very quickly in a very transparent manner. And all this is totally free for our small business customers. So that is something, that has been a very much a discovery for us also, that, how to make things happen. Over last 2-3 years, we have focused a lot on Hispanic community also. We have started a full Spanish platform. And what we have started seeing is that, we get a decent amount of Latino customers, and we recently released a study. Actually, CNBC also covered this morning, and what we are finding out is that Latino businesses have a bigger challenge in getting access to credit because of lower revenue and their average credit score being lower than the overall mainstream businesses, and their operating expenses are lower, but since their credit scores are lower and their overall revenue is lower, that actually doesn't help them that much. So I think we'll get deeper into it, as we go through this presentation. This is just a snapshot about how much difference is there, and having a credit score difference of 11 or 12 points, which Paul can also delve later, makes a big difference for a lot of lending institutions, because they will categorize you as a prime, near prime, or subprime. And then having a lower revenue actually creates more issues, because what happens in that case is that a lot of banks look at you as a very small business and they're not really interested to do those loans. So I think those are big issues that we are seeing in the Latino community right now in terms of their growth, which I think is some of the other minority groups are outpacing the Latino community right now in their growth, which is, I would say, an issue of concern. In spite of the fact that more Latino businesses are opening up, there is a big growth in the market share of Latinos overall as consumers. In the credit markets, we are seeing that the share of lending to Latino businesses has actually stagnated over the last 2 years, and other businesses outpacing them clearly means that if this trend continues, then their overall market share will actually might drop even. I will quickly, jump over to, I would say, talking about, how many Latino businesses are there. So there are over 3 million Latino businesses in this country. This figure is expected to double over next, 5 years, as you can see. They're generating a lot of demand in the marketplace, and so that clearly means that there's a lot of opportunity for Hispanic businesses to open or to thrive. And the biggest issue right now is that there is a lack of the ability to actually go in and serve those or expand the businesses, because capital is one of the biggest challenges right now. So I think the key thing here is that how we go in and how we get these businesses to the next level, and then how we can help them to keep going. So the next slide really talks about where are these businesses growing, and they're growing all over the country. So the good news is, if you see this statewide chart, obviously states like California, Texas, New York have a greater population of Hispanic businesses, but if you see in this chart, we are starting to see more and more activity in Southwest US as well as in Midwest, which wasn't the case earlier. And also, Latinos are spreading out from California. They're going into Nevada, they're going into Colorado, a lot of them. They're going into state of Washington right now. So we are starting to see, growth happening pretty extensively, which is actually a good news because that clearly means that Hispanic businesses are not anymore region focused, because in the last recession, which hit states like California and Florida very hard, Hispanic businesses actually suffered a lot because of a major concentration in California. So I think that is something very interesting now, that businesses are expanding all over the country. They're in different areas, they're in different industries, so that is something very helpful. Overall, if you see, in our study also we found that, over 20% of the businesses are in California. Florida is actually very close to California right now. It's growing very quick in terms of Hispanic businesses. Texas is there. Old strongholds of Hispanic businesses like New York, New Jersey actually are not growing as fast as Florida and Texas, which also actually converges very well with our overall study of best places to do business, where we have found that cities in Florida and Texas and some cities in California are actually better places for small businesses to be there today than in New York, New Jersey, because of cost factor and growth opportunities. Especially for Florida and Texas, we are seeing low taxation, a lot of growth is happening, and there are less state regulations. All that is helping minorities, including Hispanics, to really grow. And what we are also seeing is there's a more demand for credit coming in. So obviously, earlier, I think a lot of people were pointing out that Hispanic businesses are not growing fast enough to even look for credit, and that is not the case anymore. And especially, we're starting to see cities like Chicago, Denver, and Charlotte are actually growing very quickly in terms of Latino businesses, and especially new businesses coming up, and also existing businesses growing there. We looked at the credit score, we looked at their revenue, we looked at their operating expenses, and then we actually mapped it back to our mainstream or non, I would say, Hispanic businesses, just to give an idea about where they are and what they are doing. And we found three things, very, very interesting. One is language is still a barrier, and language is not a barrier about speaking English or anything. Language is more a barrier of trying to understand the credit markets in this country, trying to put together an application, trying to explain the needs of credit to a traditional banker, including putting together business plans and everything. The second aspect is a lot of Latino business owners don't have any experience of borrowing from banks. So when they go to a bank for the first time, and I think Paul sees it on a daily basis with a lender like Axion, where they do a lot of micro lending to Hispanic businesses, since they lack that experience, they're very hesitant to even approach banks or even approach SBA programs, which are really can be more helpful. And I think the other big issue is credit history. So a lot of Latino businesses they don't have an idea about how to set up their business credit history. They have issues with their personal credit. A lot of times they borrow money in family and friends, very high cost. They are more prone to borrow money from alternative lenders, which actually dings their credit score. And that actually also makes it more challenging for them to access the bigger and traditional banks also. I think the key answer there is that there are other options than big banks out there. So you don't have just Bank of America or Citibank or Chase, and that's where Biz2Credit also comes in, because we try to help customers to get access from over 1,300 lenders. We are trying to help them to get the best match, including Axion, and we then try to solve this whole problem of having an application which could be which have been automated and digitized, so that they don't have to go and fill physical applications and have to take physical paperwork all across the place. So that is something very helpful. Then let's see. And then, what we have seen is that SB has some great programs. They have a SBDC. They have the 8A Business Development Program, which is actually built for minorities. And SB also provides assistance both in English and Spanish. And this is where I will, hand it over to Paul.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul. I think if you haven't muted your phones, if you could, because we're getting a lot of background. I don't know if it's just me. Rohit, are you hearing background too?
Is he on there now? Because if my phone's on there twice, so maybe he's logged in and think.
No. Should be logged in as himself. He gave me the info. Okay, he's going right now. Let's see. Okay, hold on. He should be getting in right now.
Could someone mute their phone, please? Oh, okay, well, I hope everyone can hear. Well, listen, hello, everyone. My name is Paul Quintero, and I think one of the things that I wanted to just touch on was just that last point about availabilities and the roles. I think if there's one theme that entrepreneurs need to have is to broaden the options in terms of funding, and there are many today. So the good news is, despite the fact that it's still very challenging for certain kind of businesses, the options available are many more. So platforms like Vista Credit are terrific because you have a one-stop shop where you can look at the various options, and microlenders, are one of them. To talk a little bit about the Hispanic community, though, I think to put this a little bit into context, not just Hispanics, but all businesses really face a challenge. When you saw the summary that was presented before, credit scores at 611 to 622, it almost becomes a moot point because for most institutions, anything from 640 or less would be considered subprime. That number can move around a little bit, but I think what's more telling is that in a traditional setting, many institutions often require 700 or more before they even consider a loan. So the real issue is that the country's credit challenge, and of course individuals, particularly those with modest means, are going to be credit challenged. And so the solution is to find organizations that can provide more flexibility in terms of how they do their underwriting. I think that's an area where microlenders have really excelled. Rohit made the case about language. So one way you make things easier is by making people comfortable. So most microlenders across the country are minimally bilingual and in some cases trilingual. The good news also that microlenders are operating in all the markets, particularly the key markets that the Vista Credit Study highlighted. So you can actually visit, whether it's Miami, New York, particularly in Southern California, Texas was mentioned, Chicago, Denver. There are microlenders on the ground in any one of those areas where you can be able to talk to someone to really understand more about your needs. The other point that I would make is that oftentimes people are shut out because of the industry that they're in. Many people use food and beverage as an expression or extension of culture, which is, very commonsensical, makes sense, but I think for many traditional lenders, that's an area that would be avoided. That's not true for microlenders and alternative lenders. For the most part, industry agnostic, as long as it's not too capital intensive and, of course, legal. The other part of this that's a challenge, and I think was pointed out in the report, is that many are early stage businesses, typically 2 years or less, if I remember the study right. And that doesn't surprise us. We find that a lot of entrepreneurs have come to become entrepreneurs sometimes by necessity, so they're really lifestyle businesses, and therefore they have to or have a very limited history, and that oftentimes is a barrier in and of itself. And for many institutions, unless you have 2 years of tax returns, you're not considered formal or mature. So what do you do if you're just beginning or starting out? Finally, in terms of the revenue, the figures that were shared, in the kind of 60 to 80,000 per annum, well, when you extract or subtract the cost, that makes most of these borrowers low to moderate income borrowers, and that's an area that microlenders also, as nonprofits and as institutions that have been certified by the U.S. Treasury as community development financial institutions, that's what we focus on. So over 70% of the people that we lend to are low to moderate income. Finally, you saw on the map that business owners, and particularly Hispanic and Latino business owners, are everywhere. And so we've tried to make it very easy, whether it's joining us through Vista-Credit or even working with organizations directly. For us, if you go to us.accion.org, anywhere in the country, you can find out more about how we can work with you. We do everything one-on-one, which is another part that's very difficult for many entrepreneurs. Rohit mentioned that the sophistication experience is very limited, so I think it's really important to be there as kind of a coach and aid. So those are just some comments that I would add to why the microlending space is important, why alternative lenders are important, and how some of the studies and the findings of the studies fit with the things that we've been doing. On the slide itself, this is just a sampling of some of the different products that we provide, but other microlenders as well. I won't go through those too much just because I think the important thing is that people get the capital they need at the stage of business that they're at. And next slide, please. In terms of process, I didn't mention this, but speed does matter. Depending on, right now, if you go online directly to us, the accionis.org, you can apply, and within minutes we can pre-qualify. But as was mentioned, let's say you want to really access all your options, Vista-Credit also has a very, very short application where you're matched very quickly, and I think that's an important point. People really do expect faster service, and there's many reasons for that. A, the marketplace. Everyone's an Amazon shopper nowadays, but I think also because decisions require fast action, and sometimes opportunities can't wait a very long time. So I think speed is an important value proposition that many organizations are focused on, and Vista-Credit has been very focused on for a long time. Next slide, please. I think this I'll hand it back to Rich to just explain how the process can work very quickly.
Yeah, and Hector just joined us, so I will. Anita, if you want to just introduce Hector, he was able to hear some technical issues earlier.
Yes.
Rohit? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I apologize. Technology is a wonderful thing when it's working, but I've had some challenges with mine today, and so I'm glad to join you. And Rohit, thank you very much for inviting me. I've been tracking some of the conversation, and a lot of the things that have been said are obviously very true. And sometimes I think we have to put these things into perspective. The market has grown so fast. Many of you may know that my father was the founder of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and in the late 70s, when he was starting it, people thought he was nuts because they said, there's not a lot of Hispanic businesses. Why do they need a national organization? But my father knew that there would be, and of course now Hispanic business is the fastest growing segment of small business in the United States, fueled by a lot of Latina women. Women are starting businesses faster than three times faster than any other market segment. So now we have 3 million companies that are generating over $500 billion in revenue. And I really appreciate the work that Vista-Credit did on this study, because we need more of this to really understand where are the gaps and what are some of the continuing barriers that we face as small business owners. I remember hearing many years ago a great leader named Jack Kemp said that capital is oxygen for a small business. It's the oxygen they need to breathe to start, but it's also the oxygen that they need to grow over the long term. And by the way, every business needs that capital. It's not just small businesses. Major businesses need capital as well. I think all of us were tracking this week where we saw Alibaba raise $23 billion in the marketplace. That's not a small business, but it was at one time. And it just goes to show you that regardless of your size, if you want to continue to grow and have an impact, you're going to need access to that capital. Many of the businesses that are being started are very small companies, mom and pop shops. They don't all stay small, by the way, and they all need capital. But I think Paul said, or maybe it was Rohit or both of you, that a lot of these businesses, I always say, they don't know what they don't know. It's not their fault. They're very good at doing one thing, but they may not understand how to navigate the financial world. And a lot of times also they develop their own preconceived ideas. They may go to their local bank and the bank says no, and then they just assume no bank is ever going to lend me money. And of course that's not true, but you've got to go out there and you've got to really beat the bushes. And my former agency, SBA, is a great place to start. And I tell people this all the time. They're constantly tracking who's lending to who. So it could be a bank was lending to a particular segment or a particular industry last year. This year they're not. That has nothing to do with your business. It may have to do internally with that bank. So getting the intel from the SBA as to, hey, my particular business at my particular size with the experience that I have, who should I go to? Obviously, we're partnering with Biz2Credit, and I appreciate the work that they do. In fact, I don't know if you saw this, Rohit, but Latino magazine wrote an article about capital, and I mentioned Biz2Credit in there, and many of the issues that we're talking about today as an example of something that didn't exist that many years ago that is providing a great service to small businesses because it's able to aggregate a number of different options for you. They go out and they do the shopping for you. They do a lot of that legwork for you because for a small business oftentimes it's very, very difficult to do this kind of research and to be able to get to so many different kinds of lending institutions, whether they be big institutions, community-based banks, non-bank lenders, microcredit lenders, etc. Obviously, we're very familiar with Acción. When I was at SBA, Acción did a great job for us, especially with those smaller loans. And that's one of the things that also we always face at SBA, and it's mentioned in this article, that a lot of banks, especially with all the changes that have been made over the years, the regulation that has been put in place, find it very difficult to make smaller loans. So when you have an Acción or when you have a Biz2Credit that is able to go out and find you a smaller loan that will really fit your needs, that is a great situation. That was one of the challenges that I faced when I first went into SBA, where a lot of the lenders would say to us, we don't want to do small loans. It takes us as much time to do a small loan as it does a big loan. We make more money on a big loan. So unless you can save us time and enable us to make more money, we're not going to do them. We made a lot of changes, and that really freed up a lot of capital. But, that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. With the downturn in the economy, we've seen a lot of lenders exit the marketplace. In fact, I read something the other day where we have less lenders out there now than we even did, 10 years ago when I was running the SBA. So those are some of my thoughts. My organization, the Latino Coalition, is a nationwide organization that works with small businesses to help them access these tools that they need to succeed. And if we run out of time, I invite people to go onto our website, thelatinocoalition.com, to get more information. In fact, we're doing a major event in Los Angeles next week, October the 9th, in downtown LA, and I know Biz2Credit will be participating and will be there as well. And so we look forward to introducing some of our members directly to Biz2Credit. And so, Rohit, those are my comments for now. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide additional input as the call goes along. Thank you.
Yeah, and Hector, thanks for your time. We just wanted to let you know a little bit more about what we do at Biz2Credit and how easy it is for the borrowers. It's totally free. Secondly, they can compare multiple options, and then the third thing is that there is a person behind the online platform. So you can always set up a free loan consultation. We have loan specialists who can speak English and Spanish, and they can help you with all your queries. As Paul rightly said, having a personal touch and somebody who can answer your questions and can help you with things is something very important, and which a large number of banks today are missing that, and that's what especially minority business owners actually need it even more when they're applying for their first loan. as we said, we have a very strong partnership both with Axion and Latino Coalition, and we have this whole co-branded website where any Latino Coalition member can just apply for free and can get free loan consultation to get the money they need. And then we have lenders like Axion who actually provide with the capital at the other end, and it's done in a fully online environment. As you can see with Axion, we have a process of an instant approval, and then they can just complete the whole Axion application online and can get an answer back within half an hour about what to do and what are the next steps, and if they're going to get the money, then how much money they will get and what the terms are going to look like. And these are some of the screenshots to show how easy is it to see and upload all your documents which are required for Axion, and then get these done. Besides this, we also offer SBA loans. We offer alternative lending on our platform, and I think the big challenge that we see there is for a lot of customers is that collecting documents is a big challenge. Just choosing the right product is a big challenge, and then they have a lot of questions which lenders like Axion always try to address, but some of the bigger banks don't have the infrastructure or the capability to do that, so they get very frustrated. So I think that's a problem that we are trying to solve on a daily basis here at Biz2Credit along with our partners. And I think with Anita, Small Biz Trends is a great resource for content, education. They do some fantastic webinars. They are releasing a Kindle ebook next week talking about franchisee financing. So I would encourage everybody to go on Small Business Trends and check that out. And also Anita is one of the most respected, I would say, thought leader in this space. So I think a lot of people can learn about her own experiences about running a small business, as well as she's an expert in online marketing as well as brand imaging, which are actually becoming some of the most important things in the marketplace today. So I think that is something very, very, very important to really figure out. Anita, do you want to add something?
Well, thank you for that, Rohit. That's very kind of you to say those things, and really appreciate it. At this point, we have some questions, and I'd love to get into questions. There are questions for all of the panelists here, and thank you very much for all of that. Are we ready for that, Rohit? All right, let's get started on the questions. The first question I have here is for Paul Quintero. So it was very interesting to hear about Axion and how you're providing credit for borrowers who actually have very low income and may just need a fairly small loan. Paul, I wonder if you could tell us some examples of small businesses that have gotten what might seem like a small loan to another lender, but it's made a huge difference. I think people would be really motivated and inspired to hear a story or two.
Absolutely. I'll share one that just kind of underscores how we began, and I'll share another that happened very recently, so to kind of bookend what's been a little over 20 years. Our very first loan was to a woman from northern Mexico who had spent basically all her life in the factories, maquiladoras they call them, on the border between Texas and Mexico and other states there. Moving to New York, in Brooklyn, when New York had manufacturing, it was 1991, and like 2008, it was a recession year, so she lost her job. She was married. They had a child, I think 1 year old or less, and she was knocking door to door trying to find another job. That wasn't panning out, but she found a junkyard, and in that junkyard, she saw a food cart that she asked the owner if she could rent. And this is a junkyard, so the owner said, well, what are you looking to do? And remember, this is 1991, a time when there wasn't even a Starbucks in New York City. And she said, well, listen, I lost my job. I can't seem to get another manufacturing job, but my idea is I could make lunch for those who, like me, are from Mexico and are still working in the factory. And he looked at her, seriously and said, what? Mexican food in New York City? That'll never work. Sell hot dogs instead. So after he stopped laughing, she persisted and said, you know what, no, I'm going to do this, and what I need is just to rent this for you. So she rented this for $50 a month. He conceded. But by the 4th month, he said, listen, you've got to buy this from me because I'm not in the leasing business. I'm in the scrapyard business. And so she did. She negotiated, I guess, a rock bottom price of $500. But she didn't have $500 to her name. And that's where the story starts with Accion. We had just started in Havemeyer in Brooklyn. We had been doing this work for 30 years in Latin America, transforming entire countries' financial systems. In fact, some countries, 60 to 80% of the lending done in those countries are microloans. So we've transformed the face of financial institutions and the industry in Latin America. And we started this work in New York because we found that people would leave Latin America, come to New York, and find the same challenge. So we heard this and said, yeah, $500, no problem. And with that $500, she bought that little cart. That cart eventually became 2 food carts. Those 2 food carts became a restaurant. That restaurant became 2 restaurants. She called it Antojitos Mexicanos, which means like Mexican appetizers. And instead of making a few dollars a day, she was making several $1,000s a month. We tracked her down 20 years later. She had moved to Texas, one of the areas that the study that Rohit was talking about emphasizes. And when we caught up with her, instead of 1 child, she had 4. Of those 4, 2 had already gone to college, all paid for by mom, and 2 were going to go to college and would be paid for by mom because of that crazy dream of Mexican food in New York City. So $500 in a very, very high-cost environment like New York City literally changed not only her life, the life of her family, I would argue the life of the community, and all the people that have been employed by those restaurants over the past 20 years. And she continues as an entrepreneur today. So that's an example that started us off. But to bring it more current, we had a woman named Benny who, from Arkansas, also a mother, in this case of 3 kids, unfortunately never knew her father, and father-in-law, I guess, was an abusive situation, and she tells, and this is her words, you know, she kind of replicated that history in her marriage. And there was a day when she realized she had to go, and that was when she went to her car, saw a bullet hole in the headrest with a note saying, "You're next." And that's when she realized, I've got to get out of here. Literally took the kids from Arkansas, moved to New York. That's a pretty big move, but figured she got as far away as she could. Had lived in the shelters for about 6 months, and then got a job helping other women in the shelter, but that wasn't satisfying for her. So she started to do something her grandfather taught her, which was construction. She started to learn everything she could about the industry, the trade, and somehow she got herself certified as an MWB business. Somehow she was able to put in a bid for a contract that she won for $100,000, and she thought, great, I'm done. And as they were trying to get the contract executed, they said, oh, but we have this insurance requirement. Literally, that insurance cost about $2,000. She did not have $2,000. Her credit was terrible. She didn't have any history. Remember, I was telling you about businesses that are trying to begin and don't have any track record. Well, that's when she came to Accion, and this was literally about 6 months ago. Those $2,000 not only helped her get that $100,000 contract, she now employs about 8 people. And she's doing renovation work for the city for all the areas that got affected by Hurricane Sandy about 1.5 years ago. And that's the difference that $2,000 can make. I always tell people, if you give the right amount at the right time and to the right person, you can transform lives. So those would be 2 examples.
Well, thank you for sharing those, Paul. That's very inspiring for, I think, any startup entrepreneur. So good to hear those stories. We've got a question here for Hector. Hello, Hector. This is Anita here. The question for you is SBA loans. Are they better for certain types of businesses or industries, or do they cut across many different industries? What can you share on that?
It's a good question. One of the things that I would say to folks is that SBA is the guarantor of the loan. So we work with thousands of banking institutions, and so we don't necessarily dictate what kind of loans those banking institutions should do. And by the way, my experience when I was at SBA is we really ran the gamut of different types of loans. I mean, you know, what I used to say is that if it's legal and moral, the government will probably assist and help with it. And obviously, there's many businesses and industries that didn't even exist before. For example, e-commerce business. And so we guarantee those loans for those banks to allow those banks to make them. In other words, let's say that it's a small bank. They really want to make the loan. It's a little bit on the fence. And with the SBA guarantee, which can be anywhere from 50 to 70+%, they'll be willing to make that loan, because what the bank is basically saying is worst case scenario. I mean, we believe in this business, but worst case scenario, at least we're going to be able to get the majority of that money back through the government guarantee. So you need to be mindful of that. And for a lot of small businesses, that's the only way that they're going to be able to get the loan, is with that guarantee. Now, those loans tend to be slightly more expensive because obviously sometimes you're going to have to pay points on those loans. And you know, when I was back there, it was usually, you know, a couple of points plus prime. So whatever the prime interest rate, tack on a couple of points in there, and that's what the loan would cost. So it's a little bit more expensive, but a lot of small businesses would say, look, I just need the capital. You know, I can live with the interest rate, especially right now when interest rates are low. I just need this capital to be able to start or to buy the building or the piece of equipment to be able to fulfill a contract, etc. So that's the way that I would do it. And again, every bank is different, so you really need to do your homework. And it's not a bad idea, you know, to go to multiple banks and maybe get multiple offers and then compare the numbers. You might find out that a certain bank doesn't need the SBA guarantee to make it, and that loan will be less expensive. So that's a couple of points I would make on SBA lending.
Thank
And
you.
Anita,
That's
this
very
is
helpful.
Paul. I would just add one thing, which is that one of the benefits of going through a platform like Vista Credit is that you can be matched with different SBA providers. And so it's a great point about being able to access different options, but also that's a very time-consuming effort. So it's great to have a tool that can do that ahead of time, that already is thinking about your industry, and then when you get a match or matches, can save that you the business owner some time, because you know that there's a high probability of a good fit.
That's an excellent point. A platform like Biz2 Credit really is a time saver. It's an efficiency tool for small businesses, in addition to opening up more financing opportunities. And I think that's a tremendously powerful point. So thanks for bringing that up, Paul. I really appreciate that. We small business owners, we need to remember that. Question for Rohit. Rohit, on alternative lending, you mentioned that earlier. A lot of people in the audience may not know what an alternative lender really is or what that means. Could you explain and give an example of alternative lending?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, because till 2-3 years back, alternative lenders were lenders like Axion, which are, I will categorize them as very responsible alternative lenders or non-bank lenders. And what has happened over the last 3 years is that, you know, we have got some pretty big online lenders who have come into the marketplace who are charging a very high rate. So without putting any names out there, you know, some of them are very big and familiar names. And there are some pros about it because they're very quick, they're fully automated, but a lot of those benefits get outweighed by, I would say, issues like very high rates, very high cost of money, and very short term, and also, you know, most of them actually do a daily repayment. So that's what today, if you're borrowing money against your credit card receivables, against your bank account, say deposits, then those are categorized as alternative lenders. They typically have loan terms anywhere between 6 months to 18 months, and their interest rates start anywhere from 30% and go up to 150%. So having said that, what we at Biz2 Credit have been doing, and you know, we have been very focused to actually bring some competition in alternative lending. So I'm very proud to say that over the last 1 year, we have put an institutional platform which actually pension funds and family offices and credit funds actually put in their money. And there we are now able to offer alternative lending at rates anywhere between 11 to 12% and going up to 25% a year, very fast, so within 2 to 3 days, and terms that can go up to 3 to 5 years now. And obviously, it's not as cheap as Axion, but we are, not competing with Axion, but co-opting guys like Axion with our other products. And there, the good news is that we are going up to $1 million. So if there are some bigger businesses who need some quick money or some decent amount of money, then we can, lend them money pretty quickly without they being forced to borrow very high-cost money, which was the case earlier. So I think that is what alternative lending is all about today. It's getting more and more online. It's getting more and more sophisticated. Unfortunately, a lot of players are just, very sophisticated loan sharks out there. And I think as business owners, and especially minority business owners, they should be aware about these issues, because borrowing money at any cost is not the right approach. And I think what business owners should plan well in time about the kind of money they need. An example is right now, a lot of businesses are coming on our platform and they want to borrow money because they want to stock up the inventory for the holiday season. And while it is a good time, I still feel it is little like if they had started a month or two earlier, then they could have got even better options, and now they just need to borrow it. So I think those are the things which business owners need to plan well, and then a platform like Vista Credit is always trying to help them to get the lowest cost of money in the shortest time possible. And what we are also doing is that even if you borrow money which is a little high cost, then we can refinance it under SBA or sometimes with Axion and other folks, so that your cost of money keeps going down.
Good point. Another follow-up question, Rohit, for you, and that has to do with speed. You just mentioned how fast it can be to get financing, and that's really important because, as we heard earlier, Paul brought up the point about a platform like Biz2Credit being an efficiency tool. It saves you from having to do all the legwork and run around so that you can focus on your business instead of running around visiting a multitude of lenders. And we also have, this concept of, opening up more lenders too, as Hector was pointing out. But now we come to this point of speed also in getting money. When you need money, you tend to need it fast sometimes. And give us an example or two of how quickly a Latino business or any business really was able to get financing through Biz2Credit.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very good question, because as Paul rightly mentioned, everybody has become an Amazon shopper, and you want the delivery the same day or the next day with one click. Same thing is happening in financial services right now, especially in the credit markets, where people, when they need money, they want to go online, they want to compare all their offers, and they want to get things done very quickly, because that's what they are now getting used to in other sectors. So I think that's changing it. The second piece is that as the economy starts coming back and starts growing, businesses need more money. And unfortunately, a lot of banks, if we see a lot of data coming in, that bank loans are down by 19% from their peak in 2007 for loans under $1 million. So while big businesses had never as easy as today to raise money at the cheapest cost possible for small businesses, there's a credit gap of almost $200 billion, and that's $200 billion, which we are seeing in the marketplace. We deal with a lot of banks. We don't still see banks starting to come back. So I think speed is very important for customers. And I think a very prime example is, and this weekend's New York Post and Daily News in New York actually highlighted a very interesting success story on our platform. Two sisters from Peru, doing business here, carpet cleaning and installation. They actually do it from their home in Queens, have 4 employees, and they've been doing this business for 2.5 years, really built it with a lot of hard work, and doing around $400,000 to $500,000 a year. And this customer just comes in on our platform, it's like 3 months back, and goes on our Spanish platform, applies online. One of our Spanish-speaking loan specialists, has a free loan consultation with them. And they had pretty good business, showing profits. So they were not like a traditional startup Hispanic business, more established. still having very hard time to get any money from banks because it was carpet installation and cleaning business, and both the sisters actually worked themselves with a team of 4 people, so obviously, good margins and everything. And through our platform, they were able to get $75,000 pretty quickly, for a term of 4 years at a rate of 12 to 13%. And 3 months down the line, this is the start of the busy season because a lot of people are getting carpets installed and everything before the winter comes in. They've been able to grow their business. They've been able to add 3 more people, and they came back, and we were able to give them another $40,000 to $50,000. So, the first $75,000 from start to finish, and they integrated their bank accounts into our platform, so they didn't have to send any bank statements. They just authorized us to pull their tax returns from IRS and everything. So from start to finish, it was like 72 hours. And they were so happy that when Daily News and when New York Post went to interview them, not only were they, willing to talk about Biz to Credit, but they also talked about what the challenges they had faced in the past. And so much so that now they're saying that, they just want to use a platform like ours to keep getting more money and growing their business because life has become so easy and they have one less thing to worry about, which was a big thing, that was credit. So I think that's something that just pops out, and that has been a very good experience for Latino women businesses. As Paul mentioned and Hector mentioned, Latino women we are seeing are starting to start a lot of businesses, grow a lot of businesses, and we find they are even a harder time to raise money in the market. And by helping somebody like that, first generation immigrant into this country, I think, and by helping them to add new jobs and get money before the start of the peak season has been a very fulfilling kind of a loan for us also, actually.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's a great story as well. And I love the idea also of, multiple financings as well. That's an important point. It's really part of a growth strategy.
Yes. Because I think that's a lot of businesses don't plan it. Once they get the first tranche of money and they're growing their business, they will need more money. So they have to plan for it, and they have to. That's where Biz to Credit, offers them a dashboard, advice, cash flow analysis. Because as Paul has seen it a lot of time, people will come back and they ask for more money, but they haven't done a great job with the first round of money they got, or they are not really, or they haven't really thought through it. So I think that is something very important for businesses to figure out, plan for it, and that's where Biz to Credit offers them a lot of free tools to do that on an ongoing basis. Like they can, just put in their bank data, they can sync it up, they can run their whole cash flow analysis, they can benchmark their businesses with other businesses in the same industry, they can predict how much more money they will need based on their account receivables and account payables, and whether they're entering a busy season or they're going into a slow season. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, very, very good. And I think people don't automatically think of technology as helping you with the process of getting a loan, but what you've just described is, is part and parcel of what you get through Biz to Credit, and also in cooperation with the Latino Coalition and Axion as well.
Absolutely.
We've had a question for each of the panelists. I'm going to go around as we're winding down here. And the question is, if you were giving one piece of advice to Latino entrepreneurs, or any entrepreneurs for that matter, about getting a loan or getting funding, what is that #1 piece of advice? Either something they should focus on or not do, or something they should definitely do. What would that be? And so I'd like to start with Paul on that.
Okay. So much I want to say, but I'll just give this one piece in light of what Rohit was describing. And I'll describe it as funding frequency. And what that means is, how often do you need the capital? And the reason that's important to really understand, and I think Rohit gave a great example of someone that borrowed 75 and then needed another 40, is if you understand how frequently you have to go to the well, then you'll understand what kind of loan structure you need that's best suited for your business. And there are times when you need to continually go back to the well because of the nature of your business, and there are times when you just need a one-time lump sum amount. Maybe it's an addition, maybe it's a piece of equipment. But knowing the difference between the two, I think, is the beginning of really good understanding in terms of what kind of terms, when you do get loans, what kind of terms are most suitable for your business and will ensure that you're financing yourself for success.
Yeah, great point. Know thyself. Know yourself and your needs first. Great. All right, at this point, I'd like to ask Hector for your #1 piece of advice about getting funding or loan.
Well, I would turn just the other side of what Paul said into know your prospective lender. And one of the ways that you do that is to do your homework. A lot of times, small business people, they walk in the door and they're not prepared. They don't really understand what that bank does, who they lend to, what their requirements are. So to the extent that you can go in there and you've done your homework, that's going to impress the person on the other side of the desk that you're hoping will make the loan. You need to align your expectations. Again, just because you knock on one door doesn't mean that you're never going to get a loan if they say no. You wouldn't run your business that way. In business, we're used to rejection, and we power through it. You're going to get rejection in the lending industry. You cannot take that personal. What you should be doing is focusing in on your distinct competitive advantages. What makes your business special? You're passionate about your business. You think you have a great idea, but you can't assume that they know what that is. And you have to remember at the end of the day, Banks told me this a long time ago, we're not philanthropic organizations. We're businesses. We have to make money. And so from that standpoint, you need to understand that nobody owes you a loan just because you have a nice business or a great business plan or you're a nice person. You need to sell yourself and your prospects for success. You need to understand that lenders are buying the upside, not just risk. I wish everybody a lot of luck, and I want to thank Mr. Credit again for hosting us and doing this very valuable webinar.
Thank you. Great points there. We really appreciate those, Hector. So in addition to knowing thyself, know who you're dealing with and do your research before you actually go for that loan. So I'll bring it back around to Rohit Arora, the CEO and co-founder of Biz2Credit, to close us out here. Rohit, what's your #1 piece of advice and what can people do?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. So what we see is that businesses should have a business plan, and I'm not saying just a written business plan, but they should know what they need the money for. And once they get the money, they should really have a plan on how to deploy it and how to grow it, because whether you need money one time or you need money again, you will be judged by your track record. So, first time you get your money, it's tough, but second time getting it can be easier or tougher based on what you do with that money. We have seen a lot of businesses when they get access to capital, then they start, doing things which they might not have to do, or they feel that, okay, they just got a big line of credit, now they can go easy with things, or they could be less, intense with things, or less control over cost and all that. So I think that's a big mistake which they make. And I think just keep reviewing your financial performance, and as Hector rightly said, it's like banks are in a business of managing risks. Banks are in a business of, seeing who you are, and as Paul rightly said, that you need to know whether you need money one time or you have to come back again and again. So having a plan before and after you get your money is extremely important for all the businesses.
Well, thank you very much for that. So let's do a final conclusion here, and I'll ask everyone to give their website addresses. So let's start with Paul Quintero. Where can people go to find out more?
Sure. I guess I'll give the broadest, because I'm assuming it's all over the country, us.accion.org. us.accion.org.
Great, thank you very much. And Hector Barreta?
Yeah, my website is thelatinocoalition.com. Thelatinocoalition.com. You can get all the information on everything that we do for our members. You don't have to be Latino to be part of Latino Coalition. And if anybody can make it out to LA next week, we'd love to have you at our conference. It's on October the 9th in downtown Los Angeles. We're expecting several hundred small business owners. Biz2Credit will be there. And we look forward to having you. All the information is online. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rohit Arora. Yeah, so anybody can go on biz2credit.com, biz2 as in number 2credit.com, or they can email us at info@biz2credit.com, or you can call us at 800-200 5678, 800-200-5678, and one of our loan specialists can talk to you. So we are pretty much presence, we have a strong presence on the web, and any 3 ways you can do, or you can do a live chat with us anytime on biz2credit.com.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for joining in. We appreciate everyone who attended today, and the webinar will be archived on the web as well and available online for replay. So thank you all very much, and the webinar is concluded.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you all.